he is 100% worth it.
He takes it to another level. Oh my God, I just fell in love with it.
Thanks so much, Jay.
Blew my mind. And it worked. I wanted to buy my thing.
Jay is, I would say, the Yoda of sales calls, man.
Just talking to Jay, he was so good at just taking what it is, seeing the opportunity and the value and the real reason we are making it.
Talk to Jay because he got it. He can definitely help you out.
Talk to Jay. You're going to get a lot. You're going to gain a lot.
I would absolutely recommend him for any position that you have.
Jay's definitely the guy.
Give him the chance, give him the opportunity. You won't regret it.
He's good at what he does, so I highly recommend him, and I would book him before he is fully booked out.
Hey, welcome back to the Sales Ninja Show. I'm your host, Jay Lee, also known as the Sales Ninja, and today we have an exceptional guest who's a true powerhouse in the world of sales and entrepreneurship. He has over 20 years of experience, starting his career in corporate America, excelling in hybrid sales and service roles for billion-dollar companies. In 2017, he made a bold transition into digital marketing, co-founding multiple successful ventures, including Audience Lab and the Sales Lab. With his innovative strategies, he has generated an astonishing $100 million in tracked revenue for his clients, proving that he knows how to drive results. One of his remarkable achievements is launching the PDocs method, which raked in $1.6 million in cash within just a year through a simple 7-day challenge. He's trained over 3,000 students and has been recognized as a leading expert in the digital marketing space, contributing his knowledge to renowned figures like Dan Henry. He's not just about numbers. He's all about empowering others to optimize their sales processes and marketing strategies. Please welcome the incredible Ray Langdon to the show. Welcome, Ray. It is Jay, and we are on the Sales Ninja Show podcast. How you doing, brother?
That was an excellent intro, Jay, and nice to catch up with you again, my friend. Thank you.
Likewise. Now you have a track record that, you know, I've interviewed a lot of people. Okay, your journey is truly astonishing, and your achievements are impressive. So let's go back to childhood, because what the heck makes someone like you so incredible, so great? Because did it start as, you know, a 4-year-old who was selling lemonade on the street and making, you know, 4 or 5 figures a month? What the heck? Where did it all start?
Starting at childhood is interesting that you mention it. You know, I think, you know, and you've probably heard this from other people, and maybe this is similar with you, Jay. You know, have you ever ever since you were young, you just kind of thought you were special, or you didn't want to be normal or ordinary? I think I've, you know, now that I'm in the lane that I'm in now, I talk to more people where that's actually more common. And I always thought I was the weird one because, like, I was like that. But that's the first thing I think of. And then, you know, the next thing I go back to is I had the best upbringing I could ask for: the parents, the family, the friends, the towns, the schools. I had the most, you know, just most happy, fulfilling childhood that anyone could ask for, like the American dream. So, you know, good foundations and a good support system probably also gave me, you know, what I needed to be motivated and aspire for more than, you know, your regular 9 to 5.
Amazing that you mentioned, you know, you had the best upbringing that you could ever ask for, because, you know, many people who are watching and listening to the podcast may not have that. I'm just wondering, what are some of the, whether it's stories or highlights that you remember from, obviously you have parents that really loved you and took care of you. What were some of the things that you learned along the way as a child?
I learned work ethic. My dad got up and was out of the house by 4 a.m. every morning for my whole childhood, you know, before the birds were out, you know. So I learned work ethic. I learned family traditions, and like something we still do. As a matter of fact, Labor Day just passed a few weeks ago. We do Labor Day Langdon family camping trips where we'll get 8 or 10 of our cousins, aunts, uncles. We'll get multiple sites, and you know, we'll just all catch up good food and you know, so family traditions. And my dad grew up also a Southern rock and blues guitar player. So while I was doing my geography homework in 7th grade, my dad was rocking out to Led Zeppelin in the basement, and just, that kind of vibe. So very blessed.
Was that a hobby for your dad, or was he doing that as a career?
It became a hobby. When he was younger, he did it, a school band, and he actually got an offer to be with what turned out to be a relatively famous rock band when he was still in high school. But my grandmother said, "You're not quitting school to play rock and roll music." This was the late 50s. This was the mid 60s, probably, when this happened, mid to late 60s, when this happened for my dad, and my grandmother, was going to disown him. So after that, he just kind of, gigged around with a few little local bands, but it was more a hobby. He was a basement guitar guy.
Wow. And so what was your dad doing at 4 a.m.? What kind of work requires that? Was he a farmer? What was he doing?
Great question. Actually, when you mentioned, my 20 years in corporate America, I actually, I don't know if I say fortunately or not, but I followed in my dad's footsteps and did that job before I figured out, this entrepreneur stuff. And there was other aspects, but it was in a route sales role for industrial laundry companies. So if you see those companies that deliver clean towels or uniforms or napkins to restaurants or manufacturing or workshops, there's big companies called Cintas or Unifirst, or a couple big brands across the nation. So route sales, you got to be up and out, just like the hostess truck guy or the bread guy, right there. Those guys are out at 4 a.m. hitting grocery stores and loading up their vendors, and it's very similar.
So your dad was a sales guy.
My dad was, he was in route sales and service. My dad was more of a service guy. I picked up more of the sales. He sold by his relation and service, which is great, and I implement that as well. But if you ask him, he'd never say he's a sales guy.
No, okay, gotcha. So you've been in the corporate space for a long time. You gave 2 decades of your life. What caused you? What was the breaking moment? What was like the holy discontent of like, I'm done? What was the pivoting moment? TSN turning point.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think we all need that, or we all have that. I don't know if we always recognize it and acknowledge it. Mine was actually physical limitations. I have some back issues, and my job was a hybrid service sales role with repetitive bending and lifting. So when a doctor asked me to count with a little clicker, I was bending over 100 times per shift repetitively. I also was in a couple accidents, automobile accidents, where I have fractured vertebrae. So I got to the point where I saw a chiropractic specialist in my mid to late 30s, and he basically told me if I kept doing the same work I was doing, by the time I was 55, I'd be walking like a hunchback, right? And that was the first time I had this thing in my mind, like, I can't go buy a new back. Like, what's my spot? You can't go replace it. You know what I mean? So that's when I started looking at alternate ways to make money. I stumbled across digital marketing in late 2017, and I took off from there. I ran with it. Okay.
That's incredible. So it's really, you may not have left if you didn't have that physical limitation, because you hard work, a strong work ethic, and you're probably making good money. So the circumstance led to a pivot. So what did you go into, and how did you kind of fall forward to where you are today?
Yeah. So, and that's a good question. I think a lot of people maybe struggle with this when they're first starting out, or thinking that they can get into entrepreneurship or digital marketing or whatever, right? Something for themselves. But what I did is I still worked my full-time 40-hour week job and kept hustling. And I started reading books on digital marketing. I started taking courses. I actually hired a business coach before I ever put an offer together and went to market. So I took time, I learned it. I cut out weekends. I cut out a couple hours after work and just made it happen for about a year and a half, kind of killing myself to do so. And then I invested in myself until I had the confidence and the wherewithal that I could go to the market and deliver value. And once you have confidence you can deliver value to the market, that's when I realized, I was like, I never have to work for anybody again,
So I think you said something here as people are listening live or listening to the podcast that I think is a gold nugget. You said you hired a business coach before you even launched, which is very, I think, rare. Number one. Number two, you cut out weekends and evenings for a year and a half, which is extremely difficult for most people to do, especially depending on, I don't know what stage of life you were in, if you're married, if you're single, what age you were in. A lot of people do not want to sacrifice for the sake of later gain, no pain, no gain. So talk to us about those two things, because most people, I find, do not hire someone before they launch because they have all these different issues. And then talk about the whole discipline and focus of cutting out weekends, evenings, maybe relationships, friendships, because that's hard to do too.
Yeah, no, I mean, and you're right. And I think you're right. I think it would be, circumstantial or situational to people where they're at in their life, age and status. I was in my mid to late 30s. I was just coming off of a divorce. And I'm still have my mortgage and my house. 2 of my 3 kids grew up and moved out on their own. So now I have a mortgage with 1 child that's only with me 50% of the time. And I could start to actually focus on myself. For years, I was providing for a family and my kids, but now I could take a gamble. I had one child left where it was only joint custody, so not all the time, which gave me the ability to carve out more time, which I didn't put into leisure and entertainment. I put into development and learning. And again, I think you're right there as well. I think, it was a little bit of necessity for me. And I think you said something there that I might not have even picked up on is I probably would have never left that job and do what I do now if it wasn't for the back problems. But when I look back, that's also my biggest regret is that it took me 20 years to figure out I could do this. So it's like a double-edged sword. You know what I mean?
My goodness. So, and I think you're right. And one thing that you said that was really, really powerful was, you have joint custody, you coming out of a marriage. Most people that I find and that I've seen would go spend that time and money on different things that don't help them get to where they want to go in the future. It's like the now, the moment. Here I have an opportunity. Here I have some extra resources to live my life, and we'll completely do like this pendulum swing of living a life and lifestyle and making choices that they never had because of, the life that they, lived before. But you chose to gain these skill sets and have a work ethic over leisure, over your own desires. What kind of mindset does it take? Because I would say most people that I come across and I coach don't have this mindset, this focus, this ability to kind of like tell us what's going on in your brain, because this is something that most people struggle with. And how did you accomplish that?
Well, if you want to be successful or excellent at anything, you got to be willing to go farther than the next person, number one. So the faster you can realize that and not only realize that, but actually implement it and do it in real practice, right? A lot of people say one thing, it's very hard to actually do it consistently. So it was really holding myself accountable would have been the first step there. More so, I've never been much of a materialistic person. Like now I make more money than I ever made before. I still don't drive super fancy cars. I still didn't upgrade. I have a nice house and a nice chunk of land. Like I don't need the material shiny object things to feel better. And I think it goes back to kind of my youth and being really big into sports, both myself and my idols. And I realized that the greats always sacrificed for delayed gratification. They would practice and shoot 200 jump shots today to hit one shot in the end of the finals next month, right? Like you have to know, you have to put in the hard work today to get that result down the road. And for some of us, that's a month down the road, a year down the road. For some people, they don't get acknowledged or recognized as great for a decade or longer. But I think you got to know, you got to put in the work. If you think you're going to get that result in that instant gratification, like, I don't know, maybe it's a generational thing because I know the younger generation likes to see that, but I've never been feel entitled to instant gratification. I guess that's the best way to word it.
Amazing. I was just teaching in a business leadership network yesterday on the topic of integrity in sales, building trust and saying what you mean and meaning what you say and doing what you say, and then saying that you're going to do something and keep to it. So that integrity, I think, is something that is a virtue that is a lost art. And I wanted to ask you this question. You talked about different people, maybe as athletes or musicians or business entrepreneurs that you look up to, because you talked about delayed gratification. Who is an athlete or a business entrepreneur that you think of who is putting the shots in the basket when everyone else has either called it a night or comes in 2 hours early before the game? Who are people that you look up to that you learned this kind of delayed gratification?
Yeah, good question. And there's a few, and I'm going to date myself here, but the first one that comes to mind, and the first one that was my first kind of hero, and I kind of modeled myself after, was Larry Bird. In the Celtics in the 80s. I think Tom Brady's a really great example of that. And going back, I'm an old school baseball fan, and one of my favorite things to read outside of business and development, all the books that are around me on my desk, but I like to read a lot of biographies. And Ted Williams specifically, I thought was a true American hero, the way he served in wars, the way he gave up 4 or 5 years of his lucrative baseball career to go serve in the military instead of be the all-time home run king. He's one of the few athletes that's in a professional Hall of Fame for multiple sports. He's in the fishing Hall of Fame, the baseball Hall of Fame. He was just, and I fell in love with kind of his persona, and he's kind of like the modern day John Wayne. They had a lot of similarities, but yeah, those are a few that come to the top of my head of people that I kind of mimicked and learned from and looked up to.
Amazing. Let's shift our conversation because I know there's so much more we can talk about, and this is so important when you talk about these heroes, because a lot of times I find, and I'm sure we can contest that, you know, when we lack that integrity and we have all these heroes, even that we're putting on a pedestal, I've seen a lot of failouts and fallouts from lack of integrity, lack of character, and different things. They're really good and they're really skilled. They really have a talent and a gift. But the integrity and the character fell through. What did it take? You know, you talk about this idea of, you know, founding and helping multiple businesses, serving and scaling, you know, with this work ethic. You know, how did you? And one thing that I read that was really caught my eye is, you know, when you took Audience Lab, a data and tech company, and Sales Lab, which focused on helping brands grow. The key point that I got was without relying on paid ads. What the heck? How the heck did you do that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Primarily in my main area of expertise, especially where I first got my start, but I still do this. I've evolved and I have other areas of expertise now, but was with just Facebook organic. Like I don't know how exactly I developed the skill set, but I was just kind of a wizard. I don't like to really toot my own horn, but I still don't know anybody that's booked more Facebook appointments organically in the last 4 years. And really? So I modeled a system, and then I made it into a repeatable, scalable process that I could take $4 and $5 an hour VAs and put in there and have them booking appointments within 7 days on autopilot. So figured it out, figured out the system, figured out how I could teach it to anybody at any level of skill set. And I embedded them into our businesses and watched it happen. Then I embedded them into clients' businesses with the same process. And that's how we did it. Now, not to say we don't now spend money on paid ads and complement, but we're still doing organic as well.
Okay. So I'm going to take what you just said. So let's just say you've installed this framework, this Facebook wizardry, and you have like an appointment setter or a Facebook, you know, VA that you pay $4 to $5 an hour. And you said, you know, getting this installed in 7 days. Let's say after, I don't know, a month, 30 days. What kind of KPIs have you been able to see in terms of, because you said you haven't seen anyone book more organic Facebook appointments in 4 years than anyone. And this is a place where you get the flex and you can be okay. This is not boasting on something that hasn't happened. It's just a fact. It is. So you and I can just kind of, you know, just, it is what it is, right? And that's okay. Right on. In 30 days, do you have either a case study or some results that said, when we installed the system in X amount of time, we were able to book X amount of calls? Ish. Yeah. I mean, my KPI basically boils down to per setter. So obviously it would matter how many setters are in the account, how many appointments are getting booked. But what I like to teach with my organic outreach, which is much different than what I might have learned from some of the people you mentioned and, some of the other outreach out there, is I do a much more quality approach over quantity. So a lot of people with organic, they're taught to do, 50 to 100 friend requests and DMs. Well, I can do about 15 per day as opposed to 50 or 100 and get those same results. So I teach my setters in a part-time capacity about 2 to 4 hours a day, how to book in 2 solid calls. That's my KPI. If they can put in more time and do more, fine. But let's say 10 calls per week per appointment setter in an offer. And that's kind of my standard KPI. Sure, I have some that overperform and put in more work, but that's kind of how the system's built, just to get a solid couple calls per day per rep that's putting in about 2 to 4 hours of work. Okay, awesome. So do you have any case studies of, like, let's say you did 2 calls per day, 10 calls per week, 4 weeks, that's 40, qualified calls, and what you were saying is quality over quantity, which I'm like, yes, please. So if they're doing 40 calls per month, and then I don't know what the show up rates are, let's say they get 30 calls per month, because there's
I'd say it's about 75% in most of those offers.
Okay, which is really good. Have you been able to see any of your clients get, on an average ticket price and an average close rate for that offer, and they were able to generate X amount of dollars, that kind of a deal?
Yeah, so the last 3 I can think of specifically, their average order value, if I took them together, would probably be about $3,500, and the close percentage in those offers was about 17%, with the business owner closing themselves and not like an established sales team or rep. So take whatever 17% out of 30, whatever that boils down to, maybe two deals per month. Is that what that works out to?
17% times 30 is 5.1. So 5 new clients.
Okay, there you go. That's probably about what it works out to. I don't see all the numbers, but they report back to me when they close deals pretty regularly. So you're right. It is more than 2 per month. But
okay,
yeah,
so 5 new clients, and then
sorry, go ahead.
Average cart value of $3,500. They're making about $17,500.
And to install my system, they paid me less than 1/17 of that.
Wow, come on. To install the system. What do you call this Facebook wizardry engine that you are talking about?
Yeah, that's just what I call my DM Setter Academy. I've been running that for 2 years now. Probably had, I don't know, over 100 setters come through there and been implemented in over 15 to 20 different businesses and offers. Some of them, like the team I run for my own. So I have 3 brands, as we talked about: Sales Lab, PDocs, Audience Lab. I have different setters also out there on Facebook and LinkedIn setting for our own brands. So I'm running my team through there, as well as clients and other business members.
So you're running 3 businesses simultaneously right now?
Well, I can't say by myself. I mean, we have 17 plus team members now. But yes, I have my hand in, and I have focus. I split it up. I put about 20 hours into this business, 10 into this one, 10 into this one. I got it pretty dialed in, but I feel like I'm more of a chairman of a few companies.
So Sales Lab, Audience Lab, and PDocs, like 20, 10, 10 somehow. So that's incredible. And so let me ask you this question, because I feel that sales is leadership and communication, and growing and scaling companies and businesses like you are takes leadership and communication. So when you're leading a team of 17 people who are running 3 different businesses, and I think some of the numbers that I see here, you generated 1.6 million in cash collected and 2.3 million in just a 7-day challenge. Like, these are some big numbers. You have trained over 3,000 students in your sales and marketing programs, and you lead a team of 17. When you're trying to find people to help build, grow, and scale, their businesses, and we'll even talk about your 3 businesses: Sales Lab, Audience Lab, and PDocs. How do you find the A-list players who are skilled and experienced enough that they don't have a chip on the shoulders, and they're going to be like, I'm entitled to make more, and then people who are hungry, but who don't have the skill?
There is that balance, and then that's certainly the fine line people walk, right? But I think it goes back to something you said earlier about when you're running a company, and sales in particular is about leadership, about communication, and that goes back to my core values. I think that's really, really important. I have about 4 core values that I make sure are embedded into my business. They're part of me, and they trickle down to my team. So, for instance, being unfiltered and just, being willing to be myself, whether it's a political stance or maybe not a popular thing. Oh, well, I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and that's me. So, there's a certain amount of, I think, I kind of attract the right type of people. And to answer your question, where I've really got a majority of my talent is past clients, people that really excelled in my program, but had a different skill set or a different expertise, or maybe enjoyed something that I'm good at, but I don't enjoy. So, hey, man, I'm to the point where I let you do it, right? Because there's things I'm good at, there's things I enjoy, and there's things where I want to be spending my time in the business. Now I'm at the point where the 40 hours that I put in approximately, right? We're entrepreneurs. I don't work on a 40, but I'm just using that number. I put it in where I want to, where I'm most effective, and where I want to be spending my time. Whereas we all know when we start, we're doing things we don't like, things we like. We just have to do it, right? So, but a lot of the people that have come in, for instance, one of my funnel builders and one of my tech guys in PDocs, Daniel, he was a past client. He wrote me this great letter on why he thought he would be the next best fit to help PDocs scale to the next level. So I let them go out of their way and stand out. I mean, he wrote me this dialed in Google Doc that was about 2 pages long, highlighting everything that he sees, where we had little breaks in our process, where he could add value. I was like, dude, this guy did his homework. And he wants to come in and add value. And I think what you said there, that's also important. And I like to get these people to recognize, but I think a lot of these people don't realize that they are that top tier talent when I get them. So I'm lucky there, I'll say, but a lot of times they don't realize how talented they are until, they get on a team where that can be highlighted.
Amazing. Now, so there's different kinds of leaders, different kinds of bosses, and they're very 2 different kinds of people. The boss is the kind of person that goes from the back and, cracks the whip and said, go make me some more money so I can buy my next house, or, I'm just exaggerating a bit. And the leader leads from the front, gets his or her hands dirty and demonstrates and, I'm just wondering, in your leadership and as you're growing and scaling your company and team of 17, what is a leadership style that has worked for you? And how do you lead a team of 17 people?
Well, I don't want to take all the credit, and I don't lead a team of 17 people by myself. I have 2 co-owners. So there's 3 of us and then 14 underneath us. So we all kind of have our own departments, and not to say we're not in constant communication, but what we do is we do an owners, me and my 2 partners, meeting for the beginning of the week for our own topics. Then, hey, this week you're running this department or whatever. This needs attention. Now, we're pretty much always running the same departments and team members, and there's going to be some crossover. But when each business owner knows their strength and their department and their skill set and who they're managing, then it kind of flows easier. So that's one thing. But what you said there is interesting, and I'm definitely more the be in the trenches doing it with my team. So I still actively every once in a while I'll throw myself back into our sales calendar and start taking some triage and closing deals just to get back in the flow. I still do the organic outreach. I always tell people with anything, sales training, organic outreach, ad, like once I stop doing it personally, I should probably stop teaching it. I hate the people that, hey, I was an expert at this 2 years ago. Let me teach you. You know what's changed in 2 years in organic outreach? If I was teaching today what I taught 2 years ago, people wouldn't be getting crap for results. So I always want to still be in the trenches, because once I step out, that's just telling me I'm going to stop teaching it.
Amazing. So let's fast forward. You're in a time machine, and you fast forward 10 years. I mean, I don't know how old your kids are, but your 2 kids are growing up. I'm not sure if they're out of the house by now, and you are growing and scaling your business. And you may have aspirations for even more, whether it's investments or taking your business to another level. What is the future? 10 years, you go into the time machine and you achieved all that you want to, and you have a purpose and a why, which is a mission that's bigger than just the dreams and the big houses and the making, more business. What does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me and my situation, just so you know, 2 of my kids are in their early to mid 20s out on their own. And I have a daughter that just started high school. She's 14. And that's the one I have a 50-50. She's with her mom 4 days, me 3, and vice versa. So, number one, for me, I'm a very dedicated father. And that's probably the most important aspect to me. I'll blow off any work call or anything to go spend time with my daughter if there's an emergency. Like, that's always first.
Amazing.
So I will not be leaving the area or doing any of my dreams until she's at least out of high school. So that's number one. I made that promise to myself to not focus on myself till my kids are at least graduated from high school and started their lives. But what I want to be doing, and my goal, and it's actually a perfect time frame with when my daughter will graduate. I just turned 45. By the time I'm 50, I would like to be partially retired and more doing my side hustle. I plan on probably by the time I'm 50 to buy one of the nicest RVs on the planet, travel the country. And something I do on the side to make a little money, but it's more of a hobby, is I do what's called picking and antiquing, hitting tag sales, yard sales, flea markets, that kind of stuff. So my daughter and I do that on the side. That's kind of probably going to be my retirement gig. I enjoy that. I'm a little profitable at it, but I'm going to have enough money in the bank where the money's not going to really be my factor. I can kind of pick what I want to do.
That's interesting. And it reminds me of a video I watched on YouTube with Gary Vee, where he hustles on the side to do like these yard sales, and then he'll talk to his team and he'll see like a Pokemon plush doll, and he says, how much is it going for eBay? And they're like $350, and he gets it for like 25 cents. And people don't know the worth or the value, and they'll do this for like a couple hours. And he's like, I don't need the money. I do this for fun. This gives me a kick. What is it that with this yard sale and antique hobby, what is it that, why do you do that? Just wondering.
Yeah, I mean, I just like historical and cool objects, right? Like especially in certain things where I have a passion for it. But I definitely like historical artifacts. I've just always been kind of a history guy, and one thing I've learned is they don't make things like they used to. So like finding something old from the 20s, if you could find that same a can opener, I don't care what it is. It was made so much better back then, and just the craftsmanship and the story of who had it. What did they live through? Where did they come from? All that stuff kind of intrigues me. It's just part of my characteristic and personality traits that I like. But I'm the same as him. I don't necessarily do it because I need the money, but I also like to kind of know, like, I found that hidden gem, right? I'm always kind of looking for that thing. There's one great example of this. It happened in the early 2000s where this guy, I want to say he spent about $14,000, look it up, on a Fabergé egg at a tag sale or a flea market somewhere in the center of the country, Minnesota, whatever. It turned out it was worth $30 million. It was from the highest Russian.
What was it?
It was there's this famous jeweler named Peter Fabergé who primarily made high-end jewelry for Russian royalty, and they had this set of about 30 eggs that were made out of all kinds of the most elaborate golds, rubies, gems, and somehow one ended up here in this tag sale in the middle of the country. This guy finds it, buys it for somewhere between 10 and 14 grand, if I'm not mistaken. Turns out that it's worth about $30 million with today's value. So, like, it's crazy what you could find.
That's incredible. So, what is the best or coolest hidden gem or historical artifact that you've found as a diamond in the rough in the yard sales?
Oh, I almost feel bad about this one, but I'm going to be unfiltered. There was an old lady that had her deceased husband's sports card collection out there, and she had like Mickey Mantles and Ted Williams and stuff worth big money, and she had no clue what it's worth. And I just gave her asking price instead of told her. But I probably, man, especially if that was in today's value, this was years back. At the time, it was probably 20 grand worth of cards that I paid like $18 for.
What?
Yeah, she had no clue what she had, and I was like, what do you want for it? She's like, $18 for the box. I was like, I didn't want to say it's worth about 20 grand. I was like, here's your 18 bucks. And that's probably the best one.
Did you get a cent to get like a, I don't know what it calls, graded and to get, Yeah,
of course.
So
my good stuff I always get graded.
Do you have them in a mantle displayed, or do you have them locked up in a safe?
Safe and a storage unit. Some stuff's in my storage unit locked, some's in a safe.
Okay, amazing. So I want to revisit two things before I let you go, because I know time is our greatest asset. You talked about the DM Setter Academy, and I don't know if we have any information on that, because it's something that I think is super valuable to help. Is it to help people get started and learn how to set and do appointment setting organically, so they can make a living and potentially either do it as a side hustle, part-time, or even like a full-time gig where they can leave their corporate jobs? Is that something that you teach?
Yeah, no, that's certainly part of it. So generally speaking, the people that it's for is people that are currently appointment setters that have unfortunately probably learned a crappy way. Mine is very specific to Facebook outreach, specifically what I teach and the methods. But yeah, I run them through. So let's say somebody was to come into the program that wanted to either start setting appointments for their own business and expertise, maybe one of their friends' business, maybe they got hired from a business owner, or get the chance to go work even on a commission basis for a high ticket owner. I teach them how to optimize their profile properly to represent that brand, how to start adding to their network and adding the right people in a quantity, not quality approach, how to start creating content, what type of groups your ideal audience hangs out with, how to send that first message and the strategies. Matter of fact, my live stream a week ago in my PDocs group was the top 3 things that I do for all my appointment setters, and what I still do to this day, what I call my sniper targeting approach, my cold DM voice note approach, and then my Facebook group funnel and monetization. Those are the top 3 things within organic outreach, especially if somebody has or wants to grow a Facebook group. That one's not always applicable if you don't have one, right? But I walked through that in like a master class last week, and everybody that saw that, oh my God, this was so valuable. I need to go implement this. I never thought of this. So I just like to show people, hey, this is what's working today. And this is very direct. And what I showed them, even though I talk a little about teaching them and showing them how to create content, because I think that's a good byproduct, basically all the strategies I'm showing these people are how to get leads and grow their thing without ever creating any and publishing any content. Now, that's great in conjunction and coordination with that, but I'm showing them ways to use other people's ads, other people's groups, other people's social media posts, other people. There's so much opportunity where people don't realize, where their ideal audience is all day just raising their hand saying, yeah, I want more information. Who cares if it wasn't on your post? It was on somebody else's post. This guy wants information on making money online. I'm going to shoot him a friend request. I'll shoot him a DM tomorrow and see what he's up to. So there's just all kinds of opportunity that people scroll right by all day. I show them where to stop and snag it.
Amazing. And how do people find out more about the DM Setter Academy?
So I offer this to everybody. I have a discount for anybody that's in my PDocs flagship program. I give it to them a bit cheaper, and they have all the information if they're already a current client. But anybody that just wants to get into that, is probably better off just messaging me or connecting with me on Facebook and shooting me a DM. Happy to send them over. I have a quick little Loom video where I overview what's included, the training that you receive. My whole thing with it, and you would agree by what you're saying here, is the ethical relational approach, rather than just pitching people with, hey, Jay, do you want 15 appointments this month or you don't pay? Like that outreach. If that's what you think appointment setting is, please wipe your brain clean, because it's not.
I think I get that on a daily by a dozen or more a day.
It's horrible, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's sleazy, slimy, and icky. So I think you bring a new, fresh approach that is different from pretty much everything I've seen. So definitely send Ray a DM regarding Setter Academy. I think what you're doing is incredible. I love your discipline. I love that you're a dedicated father for your, is it 3 kids, 2 boys and 1 girl who's a teenage daughter? And your promise
2 girls,
to
1 boy.
invest in your, 2 girls and 1 boy, sorry, my bad. Your promise to help invest in them until their 20s is something that a lot of people do not do. And I think that speaks highly of your character. What is, a gift that you're giving that people can take, and what do they do with that?
Yeah, so what I gave you to give to everybody here today, and what I brought is what I call our Sales Mastery Masterclass. So once a year, myself and my direct partner within Sales Lab, Jesse Gibson, combined, we've closed over 30 million in high ticket deals. And again, totally honest, Jesse's got double to me. Jesse's closed about 20 to my 10. And I've said this before, as much as I hate to admit it, he's a better closer than I. Now, I'm better on the front end of marketing and warming up and relational, but when it just comes to hard closing, he's definitely better than I, and we have different styles 100%, which is what I love about sales, right? There's no right or wrong way. There's more effective ways, there's more ethical ways, and that's what we pride ourselves on. So this Sales Mastery Masterclass is myself and Jesse. Once a year, we sit together and do these for free. We usually have about 50 to 100 people that join them. We usually cap them pretty small. And he and I just show everything that we've implemented to close 30 million ourselves and to generate over 100 million in sales teams, ethically, integral, and solution-based sales. Those are our 3 main models. It's got to be ethical. It's got to be, integral, how we handle sales. And we need to be the number 1 solution. I always say, if I'm on a sales call and I'm a rep and my product isn't the number 1 solution for this prospect, I probably shouldn't even make an offer. Just refer them to who's the best fit, right? So all those things come into play. And I think the coolest thing about this Sales Mastery Masterclass, Jay, from what I've heard in feedback, is whether it's a guy looking to land his first gig and close his first deal, or a guy that's closed over 5 million. I've never had anybody come on here and say, I couldn't take away something and go implement it into my bag of tricks. And that's kind of what we provide there.
Amazing. So if you guys heard what Ray said, definitely DM him for the Setter Academy if you're looking at doing appointment setting a lot better than what you're doing, and to suck less. And if you're looking for sales mastery, there is a YouTube link that we're going to drop in the show notes and in the comments. So please look at that. If you guys are looking to be on the Sales Ninja Show podcast to apply, we're looking for A-list players and superstars like Ray to help bring amazing wealth of knowledge from being in the trenches, from finding the diamonds in the rough, as we mentioned earlier today. And for that, ethical, heart-to-heart, human-to-human relationship where you're going to create long-lasting relationships, long-lasting success. And I love that you're driving the sustainable growth based on values that, help align with your family values and your ability to discipline and focus on the hard work now so that you can delay that gratification for later. So, Ray, thank you so much for your time today. I think I would love to have you on again and we can do a swap. Thank you for sharing all the knowledge and the wealth of information that you have. It was a pleasure to have you on the show.
Well, thanks for having me on, Jay. And I must say, I've been on a few different shows and podcasts and interview, and I think you had one of the more professional, better structured, and just better flowing shows. So this was a pleasure to be on. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Ray. So that was Ray and Jay today on the Sales Ninja Show podcast. And if you guys are interested in learning more, hit the subscribe button on this podcast, share it with your friends, put a review. And if you are looking to sell more, to give more, then keep listening. Thank you so much, Ray, and talk to you guys soon.
Awesome, Jay. Thanks.
Massive.